Hello and welcome everyone to today's Association for Manufacturing Excellence webinar titled People-centric Leadership Overview. I am Jerry Strohmeyer, the Education and Training Program Coordinator for AME, and I will be your moderator. Today's presenter is Lisa Weiss, Lean Program Director of the Delaware Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Lisa is a lean continuous improvement expert with more than 20 years of demonstrated success in helping hundreds of public and private organizations achieve their vision and meet their strategic goals by engaging people, implementing enterprise excellence, and inspiring innovation. She is a certified professor for Listen Like a Leader training in the Barry Way Miller University. Lisa is on the AME Mid-Atlantic Regional Board, the AME People-centric Leadership Team, an assessor for the AME Excellence Award, and a member of the Campus Community School Board. Before we start, just a couple of housekeeping items. You will be in listen-only mode throughout the webinar. You will see that you are muted on your attendee panel on the right side of your screen. If you have questions during the webinar, please type them into your question area in the attendee panel and click on Submit. We'll review the questions at the end of today's presentation and answer as many as we can. When you log off today, please check your email inbox, and it will be an invitation and link to fill out a short webinar attendee survey. Please take a few minutes to complete the survey today, as your feedback is very important to us to improve future webinars. And Lisa has also graciously agreed to provide a PDF of today's presentation. We will be sending that along with a recorded link for a webinar replay to each of you next week. Now I am pleased to introduce Lisa Weiss, who will present People-centric Leadership Overview. Take it away, Lisa.
Thank you, Jerry. It's a pleasure to be here today and to share with you some of the material that we put together at the AME in reference to people-centric leadership. So the question is, why people-centric leadership? Why now? Well, if you ask anybody throughout the AME, throughout industry, to provide a stellar example of a lean organization, most people struggle to answer this question. But we've been at this for a long time now, so what's the problem? Well, the reality is many people can give examples of outstanding companies who are doing some really great things, but the true exemplars are few and far between. I'm asked this question all the time, and my response is pretty much the same. When we think about Toyota and lean, fundamentally there are two pillars: respect for people and continuous improvement. For too long, we have focused most of our conscious energy on the continuous improvement pillar and the associated tools and thinking, and have assumed that respect for people will just kind of happen on its own. If you picture in your mind a house with two pillars, in which one pillar, the CI pillar, is large, tall, and strong as a result of the huge investment that we made in it, and the other pillar, the respect for people pillar, is small, short, and weak as a result of neglect. We now have a lopsided house with a roof that is falling off. So in an effort to continuously improve, in 2001, AME leaders envisioned a manufacturing renaissance driven by people-centric leadership coupled with enterprise excellence. In order to realize this vision and put it into practice, the AME began to invest resources to help manufacturers build the respect for people pillar in the House of Lean. An AME PCL team was created to build resources to assist and inspire companies in creating a people-centric culture. A website was created dedicated to people-centric leadership. An 8-hour people-centric leadership fundamentals course was developed to introduce the basic concepts. The AME partnered with the Barry Way Miller Company to offer the Listen Like a Leader course to AME members. A yearly people-centric leadership summit for CEOs and senior leadership was initiated, and target articles to highlight best people-centric leadership practices among AME members are published regularly. Currently, additional education and course content is currently under development. So what does the AME mean by people-centric leadership? When we talk about people-centric leadership, we mean a culture where every day, everyone goes home fulfilled by pursuing excellence and where everybody flourishes. In our definition, people feel fulfilled as a result of pursuing excellence. So there's a tight link between the culture and the lean and continuous improvement tools. Also included in the definition is that everybody flourishes. The employees, the customers, the community, essentially all the stakeholders, as well as the organization. As I already said, there has been a really strong focus on lean tools and continuous improvement, and yet very little emphasis on the culture and behaviors that support it. These efforts have met with limited success or have been difficult to sustain over time. Perhaps we should have begun with a respect for people pillar. I think this quote from Ed Short of Justin Tanks, who participated in both the People-centric Leadership Fundamentals course and the Listen Like a Leader course, really sums it up. Change or continuous improvement is a difficult thing. You might consider people-centric leadership as the foundation, with the employees being the blocks. When you're able to fill in all the blocks, you are now prepared to build the future of the organization, develop a new culture for success. So if we're going to achieve our vision, then we need to understand where we are. So how are we doing today? Every year, Gallup conducts a poll of employee engagement in the workplace. This data shows that only 32% of the workforce is engaged, 51% is not engaged, and 17% is actively disengaged. It is estimated that this level of engagement costs the U.S. between $450 and $550 billion a year in lost productivity. Engaged employees are 480% more committed to helping their company succeed, 250% more likely to recommend improvement, and 370% more likely to recommend their company as an employer. Companies with engaged employees have lower turnover, higher quality, fewer accidents, and are more creative and innovative. There is hope, though. Today, over 87% of C-suite executives recognize that disengaged employees are the #1 threat to their business. But here is a point of concern. If we look at the Gallup data over the past 15 years, the level of engagement in the workplace has not really changed. It stayed pretty steady around 30%. The question is, why? If we're going to answer that question and change the 15-year status quo, we need to ask ourselves, what is engagement and what drives it? Engagement is the mutual commitment between the employee and the organization. The success and fulfillment of the employee is critically important to the organization, and the success of the organization is critically important to the employee. Engagement applies a positive connection between the employees and the organization. Engagement is more than satisfaction. It is the above and beyond effort people would give if they wanted to. If you ask someone to define a time at work that they were really engaged, people will say things like, when I was working on something that challenged me, when I was working in a team and we all really clicked, we had each other's backs, when I was doing something that had meaning or purpose, when I accomplished a tough goal, when I was given time to focus my attention on something that interested me, when I helped someone in a difficult situation. It is not uncommon for people to describe a time that they worked on a continuous improvement project or event. So what does the role of the leader or the role of the manager play in this? Well, actually, the role of the leader is pretty significant in driving engagement in the workplace. Actually, these leaders can account for over 70% of the variance in engagement. Surprisingly, 35% of workers said they would forgo a substantial pay raise to see the direct supervisor fired. People don't quit their job, they quit their boss. This tells us that the people we work for and the people we work with play an important role in our engagement at work. As for senior leadership, their role is foundational. A really great example of this has been described as the Pope Francis effect. During the Pope's visit to the U.S. in the fall of 2015, they were interviewing a Catholic priest on the news about the Pope's popularity, his progressive, humble, and accepting attitude, and his effect on inspiring Catholics, particularly the younger generation, to reignite their faith and return to the church. Unfortunately, as Catholics returned, expecting to see a new and enlightened church, They were met with the archaic and judgmental priests and leaders that caused them to depart in the first place. So what is great leadership? Or perhaps we should ask, what is effective leadership? If we look at some of the work done by Richard Boyatzis of Case Western University, there are a lot of leaders out there, and empirical research has shown that 80% of all leaders are not adding any value at all. You could take them out of their position and their organizations would function actually more smoothly. If you do an exercise and you ask people to think of and describe a leader that they really liked working for or with, somebody who really influenced them, made a big impact on their life, somebody who was electric. People usually say things like, they challenged me, they listened to me, they cared for me, they encouraged me. Conversely, if you ask them to describe a leader that was a lump, that they dreaded working for, they'll say things like, they micromanaged me, they didn't care about me, they didn't see value in me. Reflecting on this exercise, effective leaders bring out the best in people. They build relationships with us. They are in tune with us. Effective leaders focus on the relationship and let the numbers come. So, if our goal is for people to feel fulfilled, for everybody to flourish, and to improve engagement in the workplace, what can we do? Well, you can't make people feel engaged. You can't make people care. You can't change people. You can't motivate other people. People do things for their reasons, not yours. So as a leader, you can only provide an environment which will inspire people. So in the words of J. Irwin Miller, the truth of the matter in business is that you don't do anything by yourself. You create an atmosphere in which people want to do their best. You don't order anybody to do their best. You couldn't order Beethoven to compose the Ninth Symphony. He's got to want to do it. And so the head of business is an enabler rather than a doer. If we want to create a people-centric culture, we have to start by changing ourselves. So in order to help us create a people-centric culture, we have put together the AME PCL Framework. It's similar to a House of Lean, and it's based on the Lean Enterprise Institute Transformation Framework. The base or foundation of the house is the basic thinking and mindset. In a people-centric leadership culture, leaders, and when I say leaders, I mean everybody, leaders truly care about their team members. They want what is best for the team member. They respect team members. They recognize that team members know what is best for the team member. They do not try to control others. They recognize, accept, and value the unique gifts and talents that everybody has to offer. And they recognize the equal but unique importance of all team members, including themselves. As the Dalai Lama so aptly puts it, they see themselves as one of the 7 billion people on the planet. We then have the pillars of the house. On one side, we have process improvement and the associated lean tools and thinking. And on the other side, we have capability development to meet the needs of the organization and the growth of the team member. Inside the house, we have the essential leader behaviors and management systems needed for effective process improvement and capability development in a people-centric culture. This all supports the roof of our house, which is people, the business, the communities, the planet flourishing. Since we already talked about the basic thinking and mindset, we're going to walk through the house, beginning with the leader behaviors, followed by capability development, and wrapping up with goal setting, feedback, and alignment. As we go through, we will discuss the link to the process improvement pillar, which is critically important, but not the tactical focus of this webinar. We begin with the first leader behavior, self-reflection. Self-reflection and assessment is the key to all growth. We only grow, develop, or change when we see the need to change, not when someone tells us we need to change. Self-reflection is a continuous process of understanding and evaluating values, goals, and objectives, and how congruently behaviors and other perceptions of our behaviors match those values, goals, and objectives, and then the capacity to self-adjust. Self-reflection begins with self-observation. It is a way to understand the current state of who we really are. This is the ability to look at oneself critically as a third person, not overcritically and not with too much hubris. It's really a balance. It is the ability to accept and take responsibility for our behaviors and outcomes, whether good or bad. In Poor Richard's Almanac, Ben Franklin writes, "There are three things extremely hard: feel, a diamond, and to know oneself." His advice: observe all men by self-love.
Lisa, are you there? You may have lost the connection here, so please be patient. Hopefully we'll get Lisa back on the line. Lisa?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Thanks everyone for being patient. I'm glad we got Lisa back. Thank you.
I'm not sure what happened there. All right, so back to self-reflection. So as we think about self-reflection, not only do we need to understand who we are, as Michael Abrashoff stated in his book, It's Your Ship, Management Techniques for the Best Damn Ship in the Navy, management has a lot to do with answers, but leadership is a function of questions. And the first question for a leader always is, who do we intend to be? Not what are we going to do, but who do we intend to be? So what is the impact that you want to have on the people you lead, the people that you work with, the people that you work for? Who do you want to become? In 2014, in his speech for Best Actor in Dallas Buyers Club, Matthew McConaughey talked about how someone once asked him when he was a young boy, who was his hero? And he said it was me 10 years from now. And 10 years later, he didn't become a hero, but his new hero was himself 10 years from then, and so on. As he put it, we all need someone to chase, our future self. So the question is, who is your hero? Who is your future self? Becoming a people-centric leader or a better people-centric leader or building a people-centric culture is a result of significant behavioral change. Like lean and continuous improvement, it is a continuous learning journey that requires self-observation, reflection, assessment, and adjustment. The AME PCL team has developed a PCL assessment tool to assist individuals on the PCL learning journey. This is an integral part of our PCL fundamentals course, and it is being integrated into the AME award criteria for 2018. This assessment will be available on the website soon. So the second leadership behavior we want to talk about is building relationships. We already talked about how effective leaders build good relationships. I would argue that it is the primary role or function of an effective leader. So let's take a deeper look at why building relationships is important and how. Let's start with why. So if you recall from our PCL framework, the roof of our house is everybody flourishing. So what does that mean? In a recent survey in which millennials were asked what was their most important life goals, 80% responded that one of their most important life goals was getting rich. 50% responded that it was to become famous. The belief is that by working harder, putting more energy into our work, we will have a more fulfilling life. In our research on the AME PCL team, we came across a 75-year study on adult development conducted by Harvard. The primary objective of this study was to understand what keeps us healthy and happy as we go through life. This study tracks 724 men from their teens to old age. It began in 1938 and continues today, being passed from one head researcher to the next, and is currently being led by Robert Waldinger. This study looked at two groups of men. One group consisted of Harvard students, the other group from some of the poorest sections of inner-city Boston. Throughout the study, every year, participants and their families were interviewed, health records were examined, and medical data was collected. So what did they find out? Basically, the good life is built with good relationships. It's not wealth, it's not fame. Now, this is not earth-shattering, and it really has been known for centuries. So why is this so difficult? Basically, building relationships takes time and energy. Relationships are messy. Building relationships is hard work. They are not a quick fix. We already talked about your future best self. The question is, if you want to invest in your future best self, where should you put your time and energy? Contrary to conventional management practices, in a people-centric culture, the leaders need to build personal connections with each and every employee. The reality is the whole person comes to work. What affects the whole person affects the work person. Getting to know the whole person provides the leader with the opportunity to understand what makes each person tick, what each person's values, passions, and gifts are. It builds respect. It provides the leader with the insight to give their employees' jobs real purpose. As we all know, it's all about the relationship. So if the first role of a leader is to build relationships with people, the second role is to build relationships between people. Many barriers and silos in organizations can be broken by simply building relationships between people. Let's face it, all work is not fun. Sometimes we have to do things that we do not want to do, but we do them because we have a relationship with the other person. I'm pretty sure that my son does not like to take out the trash, but he does it for me because of our relationship. Lean events and improvement activities are the perfect opportunity to build relationships, particularly across functional boundaries. Sometimes the most beneficial outcome from a lean event is the relationships that are built between employees and between participants. Unfortunately, the full impact of this is never actually captured. So when talking about relationships, trust is the foundation for all relationships. So how do we build trust? First, we need to demonstrate confidence. You must have the technical ability to perform or do the work, as well as have the vulnerability to admit what you don't know or can't do. You need to care about your employees and the people you work with. Studies have shown that when people care, their performance increases. In a study with radiologists, one group was given medical images to read, and another group was given the medical image along with a picture and a short description of the patient. Both groups performed equal in diagnosis for the reason the image was taken. However, the group that was given the image along with personal information about the patient had a higher rate of identifying other issues or problems. Third, we need to act with integrity, be open, transparent, honest, and accepting. And fourth, implicitly trust. The first step in getting people to trust you is to trust others. This means giving people control of their workplace and the work that they do. Implicitly trusting means decision-making is pushed down to those closest to the information. Think of all the policies that you've encountered throughout your career that show we don't trust people. Locking up tools, excessive checks, things like that. Why do we need to implicitly trust our employees? Well, a feeling of having control is central to being engaged. Also, scientific studies on stress in the work environment have shown that it is not the demands of the job that cause the most stress, but the degree that people feel that they are in control of their work environment. So, humility. When we talked about the PCL framework and the foundation of our house, we talked about how people-centric leaders see themselves as one of the 7 billion people on the planet. People-centric leaders do not feel that they are superior to anybody. These leaders recognize that their vulnerabilities, frailties, and limitation are a reminder that we need one another, that we are not created for independence and self-sufficiency, but for interdependence and mutual support. In today's world, we can't have all the information. People across multiple disciplines are needed to solve problems, create, and innovate. Last year, I had the opportunity to go to an exhibit at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia on Pixar animation studios. This was an amazing display of how the brilliance of math, science, and computer technology is combined with the creativity of storytelling, art, animation, modeling, light, and sound. Embedded in the organization is the deep appreciation of all the disciplines, all the people needed to bring a production to life. So moving on to our third leadership behavior, communication and listening, or perhaps we should say effective communication and listening. The quote from George Bernard Shaw sums it up nicely. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Communication is a basic skill required for all jobs and all of life. But what is communication? Well, there are verbal and nonverbal components of communication, and then there is the sending and receiving components of communication. We tend to place our importance on the verbal and sending components of communication. However, research has shown that we may be better off developing and perfecting the other aspects of communication. According to research, about 93% of the thoughts and feelings behind any message are communicated non-verbally. Albert Morabian is a psychology professor at UCLA known for his research on the breakdown of communication into the elements of verbal, nonverbal, and vocal. It is often referred to as the 7-38-55 rule. When we think of communication, we tend to focus on the words that we say, when actually they only represent approximately 77% of the message we are sending. 38% is vocal, the tone, pitch, pace, rhythm, and volume of our voice, while 55% is nonverbal, body positioning and gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact. So how does nonverbal communication really work? On the sending side of communication, whatever we are thinking and feeling in our brain is translated and manifested outward through our body. Most of this happens unconsciously or subconsciously. For example, when we're angry, signals in our brain are sent to our voice box that causes us to speak louder and faster. On the receiving side of communication, we pick up these signals, and the same neurons that were firing in the brain as the sender begin firing in the brain of the receiver, and we actually feel what the sender is feeling. We, in a sense, become connected, kind of like this big wireless connection. Again, most of this happens unconsciously or subconsciously. So, for example, have you ever watched someone making a presentation who was really nervous? You actually felt nervous with them, and it may have even made you feel uncomfortable. You were actually experiencing and feeling what they were experiencing and feeling. Moods and feelings are infections. People refer to this as emotional contagion. So pretty much 24/7, we are broadcasting what we are thinking and feeling. As leaders, we need to be aware of what we are thinking and feeling. If we do not care about our team members, we are broadcasting this message. If we do not trust our team members, we are broadcasting this message. If we think we are superior to other people, we are broadcasting this message. If you are faking it, people know. If we are angry and upset, we are going to make other people angry and upset. If we are confident and optimistic, we are going to make other people confident and optimistic. So 24/7, you are the message. So now let's talk about perhaps the most often overlooked component of communication, listening. So why do we need to listen? Well, if one of the primary roles of leadership is to build relationships, the best way to build relationships is to listen. When we listen, it allows us to understand the other person. It allows us to see into the mind of the other person. It helps us connect. Everyone wants to be heard. And third, by listening to others, it is more likely that they will listen to us. Most people believe that listening is patiently and respectfully waiting until the other person stops talking so we can talk. People also believe that listening is an innate skill. I have 2 ears, therefore I can listen. Listening is actually a learned skill that takes practice and hard work to master. So let's go through a few tips on how to listen. First, give people your full attention. Make eye contact, move closer. Silence your mind so that you can hear everything that they say and can tune in to the nonverbal message that they are sending. When you respond, simply reflect back the thoughts and feelings of what you have heard, untainted with opinion, advice, and judgment. Act as a mirror so that they can get a clearer picture of themselves and their situation. Empathize with the other person. Put yourself in their shoes. See it as they see it, hear it as they hear it, feel it as they feel it, and understand it how they understand it. So let's talk about a few things that we should stop doing. First, stop judging. As humans, we have a natural tendency to judge. As soon as someone starts talking, we form an opinion about the way that we think it should be, how it would be better. We form an opinion about what is the right way for someone to act or feel in a given situation. Second, stop seeking agreement. People tend to believe that everyone should see it their way. When we listen, we simply accept the way things are. Have you ever said or had someone say to you, you really shouldn't feel that way? People should be given the grace to think and feel as they do in the moment. People feel however they want to feel, and we need to accept it. We don't have to agree. We simply have to learn acceptance. Stop giving advice and your opinion. Stop telling your story. Stop trying to solve other people's problems. Giving your advice and your opinion may not only be harmful to the person, but it can also be harmful to the relationship with them. So, celebration and recognition is the last of the leadership behaviors we're going to talk about today. So, what is the purpose of celebration and recognition? There are actually many reasons that we celebrate and recognize, and just to name a few of them, it marks progress and encourages us to move forward towards meeting our vision and fulfilling our mission. It provides an affirmation of the value we bring. It helps build confidence and self-worth. It helps us meet a fundamental need for fun, and it helps build relationships. It creates positive energy, and it keeps us moving during tough periods. It encourages process improvement and capability, feeling of fulfillment, and is an essential component of flourishing. So a lot of organizations have celebration and recognition programs, but what is so different in a people-centric culture? In a people-centric culture, celebration and recognition is not a tactical rewards program that is administered by HR and delivered by leadership. Instead, it is an integral part of the culture, modeled by the leader and practiced by all associates. It focuses not just on the receiving end of celebration and recognition, but the giving end, building resilience in people. PCL cultures encourage and develop associates' ability to appreciate others. Interestingly, studies have shown that the person who gains the most from expressing gratitude is not the person being appreciated, but the person doing the appreciation. For example, at the Barry Way Miller Company, every meeting is opened by inviting attendees to recognize the effort. In a people-centered culture, not only do we recognize and celebrate achievement of tactical goals and performance, but also behaviors and attitudes that are aligned with the organizational values. Sometimes we do all the right things and fail, and we treat these failures the same as when we fail because of ineptitude. Management must recognize the performance and attitude of employees, not just success. In February of 2017, a USA Today article provided a perfect example of this and how Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, handled the brilliant failure of the introduction of the Twitter bot Tay. In the old days of Microsoft, heads would have rolled. Instead, Satya Nadella sent the team a note of encouragement. "Keep pushing and know that I am with you," he wrote in an email. In order to move the company towards an innovative and creative future, Satya Nadella stated, "What I realize more than ever now is that my job is curation of our culture." So we talked about the essential behaviors for creating a people-centric culture. So let's move to the pillars and talk about developing capability by supporting the growth and development of people, and how this links to the lean tools and process improvement. When we think about developing capability, there are basically three areas that we can focus on: continuous improvement, technical and job-related, and social interpersonal skills. I would guess that the majority of organizations spend most of their time developing tactical or technical and job-related skills, some time in developing continuous improvement skills, and little to no time developing social and interpersonal skills. But they're all important to organizational success. Developing capability is about growth. So what do we need to grow? To develop our skills. Basically, we grow when our strengths and skills are deployed to meet new and higher challenges. Over half a century of research has shown that growth is the essence of engagement. As we are presented challenges of increasing skill, our engagement increases to a point at which it maxes out and then decreases. If the challenge is relatively low, we are bored. If it is too high, we experience anxiety. But when the appropriate challenge forces us to a new level of mastery or expertise, it is at this point that we experience our highest point of engagement. If you ask an individual just to describe times in their work environment that they felt really engaged, they will often describe times in which they were assigned to a project or team which forced them to stretch their abilities, that forced them to use their skills to think, to grow. These types of challenges are present in the workplace everywhere, and pursuing enterprise excellence provides infinite opportunities to challenge people. In addition to providing skill-appropriate challenges, people-centric leaders are coaches. And there are two basic forms of coaching, instruction and development. Instruction is used when we are showing someone a new skill that they have never seen or are unfamiliar with. Development is used to further develop a skill, to get people to self-evaluate, assess, and critically think on their own. Essentially, development is a form of challenging people. If you are teaching an 8-year-old how to hit a golf ball with a club, who has never seen a club or a ball before, you are going to use instruction to build or establish this new skill. You're going to tell them how to hold the club, how to hold their body, how to swing, keep their eyes on the ball, etc. If you are coaching a sophomore in high school to improve their swing, you are going to get them to self-evaluate and correct appropriately. You might ask questions like, where did the ball go when you hit it? Why do you think the ball hooked to the left? How did it feel? You might even video the swing to get them to evaluate themselves. And then you might ask, what do you think you need to do differently the next time? And what do you expect will happen when you make these adjustments? Both forms of coaching are necessary in growing capability. Unfortunately, most coaches never move from instruction to development or spend far too much time in the instruction phase. We do this because it is a lot easier and takes a lot less time to tell somebody what to do than it is to get someone to think and self-evaluate on their own. Usually, after a minimal amount of instruction, people are ready to be challenged to think on their own. When we do this, it actually decreases the overall time to learn a skill or to enhance or improve upon a skill. So, we started the webinar with the idea that self-reflection is the key to growth. If that is the case, then a people-centric leader coaches by facilitating self-evaluation and assessment, which promotes the development of critical thinking skills and self-directed growth. So how do lean tools fit into all this? Well, lean tools are designed to support the growth and development of people. Just to name a few, and some examples that we have here, standard work and TWI is designed to teach new skills through instruction as well as development. Kaizen events provide challenges for people. Toyota Kata provides a structured methodology for coaching critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Training matrices measure progress and help identify gaps. Continue improvement boards identify goals and challenges and track progress. And A3 problem solving provides a standard format to develop problem solving skills. So, as we've talked about the leaders' behaviors and growth and development, we've already touched upon the importance of goals in a people-centric culture. As we know, one of the essential elements for a lean organization is strategy deployment, and this is critically important in creating a people-centric culture. In order for people to be engaged or to flourish, people need to understand their unique contribution and how it all fits. Not only is it important to create a vision for the performance or organizational goals for the
Lisa?
For everyone.
Lisa, you kind of timed out there for a second.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go back?
But just like so the last 2 cents.
Okay. So I was just saying that not only is it important to create a vision for the performance or organizational goals for the business, but it's also important to create a vision for the culture that can be translated into a unique personal vision for everybody in the organization. So, strategy alignment is simply a means of translating priorities into a plan that is easily communicated so that all people can engage in meeting the organizational goals and feel that what they do matters. Basically, people want to know what's expected of them. We start with taking priorities and putting them into a plan, an inspiring plan. That plan then needs to be easily communicated, keyword being easily, so that people can get engaged and can visibly see when they are winning, and they want to continue the cycle. So we want a means of communicating our mission, goals, and core values into an actionable plan. It is important to note that it isn't a one-way top-down effort. It involves input and feedback throughout the organization. So the question is, why do organizations struggle to execute on their plan? First, although goals may have been established in the plan, they have not been communicated clearly in a language that everyone can understand, so people do not know the goal. Second, if they know the goal, they do not know exactly what they need to do to achieve the goal. Third, if they know the goal and they know what they need to do to achieve the goal, they've not been given a means to measure how they were doing against the goal. And finally, if they know the goal, they know what they need to do, and they're given a means to measure their progress, the breakdown occurs because they are not held accountable or nobody seems to care that they are meeting or not meeting the goal. In order for people to feel engaged or to feel fulfilled, they need to feel that their unique contribution counts towards achieving something bigger than themselves. If executed effectively, strategy deployment accomplishes this. So ultimately, if we want to create a people-centric culture in which every day everybody goes home feeling fulfilled by pursuing excellence and everybody flourishes, we need to begin by changing ourselves. In the words of Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. So that completes our PCL framework, beginning with the basic thinking and mindset that forms the foundation, the behaviors and systems needed for the pillars of process improvement and capability development that holds up the roof in which everybody, the people, the business, and the community flourishes. So let's go back to the first question on leadership. Who do you want to be? And as you think about your response to the question, recall the quote from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And now, what do you need to do to become that person? So I would like to thank you on behalf of the AME People-centric Leadership team. It's been a pleasure doing this seminar. I would also like to bring your attention to some of the PCL resources. The AME website has all kinds of information available and resources available. Also, on July 25th and 26th, we're doing the Fundamentals of People-centric Leadership course at Neptune in Tallahassee, Alabama, where we'll go into more depth on the topics presented today. And we'll also have the opportunity to benchmark Neptune and their people-centric leadership practices in their organization. And then September 12th through 14th, we're doing the Listen Like a Leader course at Siemens Healthineers in Newark, Delaware, which is really a deep dive into effective communication and listening. So with that, I want to thank you again, Jerry, for the opportunity and turn it back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Lisa. And again, thank you everyone for your patience during our audio technical difficulties earlier, but we're good now. And if you do have any questions, please submit them on the right side of your screen. And here's one, Lisa. How do you measure employee engagement? And how can you tell if you are successful in implementing a people-centric leadership culture?
So the Gallup has a questionnaire. It's called the Q12. You could actually Google it online, the Q12 questionnaire, and you can use that survey to get a pulse of, how well you're doing. And that's actually what Gallup uses in getting the data on engagement in the workplace. So that's one way to do it. The other way is in any organization, you can get a pulse or a feel for what the level of engagement is in an organization by just talking to people, bringing together focus groups, and really trying to understand. So do you need a survey? maybe, maybe not. Maybe just go out there and talk to people to find out how you're doing and really learn how and listen to what people are having to say.
Okay, great, thanks. And another question is, how important is it to have leadership support in establishing a people-centric leadership culture? And second to that, how can you get leadership commitment in establishing the PCL culture?
So, I talked about the role of the immediate leader and how critically important it is that your immediate leader plays in establishing engagement in your organization. And the top leadership, a lot of people believe that the top leadership is critically important. A lot of times when we started our lean efforts, it's like, oh, we have to have top leadership buy-in in order to create a people-centric leadership, or to have lean in our organization. The reality is, it is great. You want to create a great culture. You want everybody involved. Sometimes you're not always going to get the top leadership buy-in. Sometimes you will. But it shouldn't stop you. It's kind of like do what you can with what you got. And the reality is kind of like the Pope Francis effect. It's the immediate leader, the immediate supervisor that's going to play a larger impact in creating the culture on a day-to-day basis. How do you get buy-in? Well, you can't control people. I said this. You can't make people engaged. I think the best way to get people to be converted is to demonstrate the benefit. If they see something and they see how it works, and see that it works, that's what people encourages and inspires people to want to have that. So I actually think some of the things that the AME does relative to benchmarking opportunities around what other companies are doing and best practices is a great way to get leadership or other people's buy-in.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. It looks like we've got one more question. And again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them into the box on the right side of your screen. What can you do to improve your ability to self-reflect?
That's a great question. I think self-reflection and self-assessment is difficult because people do one of two things. They're either overly critical of themselves, or they're not realistic. They see themselves maybe as better than they are, or they're not honest in their image of themselves. So there's actually a lot of information out there. William Ury, and I think some of the work of Goldman out of Harvard, they've done a lot about self-reflection, self-assessment, and they talk about really being able to listen to yourself, all right? Really being in touch with what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And so the other part of that is a great way to be able to see yourself in the eyes of others is to listen to other people and to really learn how to listen. By listening to others, you will get a good picture, an opportunity to kind of see yourself in other people. So I think that's a tough one. I think it's one of the areas that we're going to focus some of the upcoming course content on, is how to do that and how to do that well, self-reflection and self-assessment.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for all your questions. And thank you, Lisa, for a very informative presentation. And as Lisa mentioned, there will be a more in-depth workshop on the fundamentals of people-centric leadership, including a tour and opportunity to benchmark against Neptune Technology Group's manufacturing operations in Alabama on July 25th and 26th. Our next scheduled webinar will be on Thursday, June 22nd, titled Lean-Driven Innovation with Norbert Majuras. Please visit AME.org under the AME Events and Training tab for more information on both events and to register. Please don't forget to fill out the short survey that will be in your inbox. Thank you everyone for attending and have a productive day.
Thank you.